Members, it's the appointed time. We have a quorum. I call to order the meeting. The meeting is scheduled to end at 5:30 this afternoon. If need be, I will extend the meeting by a maximum of 15 minutes. If members have any direct or indirect pecuniary interest in relation to the items being discussed today, please declare the relevant nature of the interest before you speak in accordance with paragraph 83A of the Rules of Procedure. Please also pay attention to the voting in relation to direct pecuniary interest. Item FCR 2024-25-6. This item invites members to approve the creation of a new commitment of $2.8384 billion under the Innovation and Technology Fund Head 111, Innovation and Technology for the establishment and operation of the Hong Kong Microelectronics Research and Development Institute, Hong Kong MRDI. The panel on Commerce, Industry, Innovation and Technology discussed this item in the meeting on the 19th of December 2023. We have with us a couple of officials, Professor Sun Dong, Secretary for Innovation, Technology and Industry, Mr. Ivan Lee, Commissioner for Innovation and Technology, Mr. Lau Wai Ming, Assistant Commissioner for Innovation and Technology, and Professor Philip Chan, Team Leader, to walk us through the documents. Mr. Jeffrey Lam is not with us today. I will walk members through the discussion highlights on the 19th of December. The panel discussed this agenda item in the meeting on the 19th of December 2023, including setting up and operating 2 pilot lines in Microelectronics Center MEC in Yuen Long Inno-Park in order to promote the development of microelectronics in Hong Kong. Members supported the submission of the funding proposal to the Finance Committee. Members were concerned about how the establishment of the MRDI would benefit the local economy and how the MRDI and the MEC in Yuen Long Inno-Park could promote the development of the local microelectronics industry. Members welcomed the administration's proposal to set up 2 pilot lines in order to fill the gap and promote research, development, and industrialization. Members were also concerned whether export controls implemented by other countries would have an impact on the development of third-generation semiconductors in Hong Kong. Members suggested that the MRDI should work with local universities, including campuses in the mainland and R&D institutions. Connections should be built in order to promote the research and development of microelectronics. Members also urged the administration to review the coordination and the division of work in relation to the development and research of semiconductors with the MRDI and the relevant institutions, that is to achieve complementarity and avoid duplication of functions. The administration already responded to members in relation to their views and concerns in the meeting. 13 members in total have pressed a button to request to speak. They are in order: Mr. Lam Chen Sing, Andrew Lam, Professor Priscilla Leung, Professor William Wong, Reverend Peter Kun, Mr. Chen Siu Hong, Dr. Johnny Ng, Dr. Lo Wai Kwok, Ms. Connie Lam, Mr. Chao Siu Chung, Mr. Shanghai Long, Mr. Tung Li Tse, Dr. Chow Man Kong, and Ms. Eunice Yong. The first member, Mr. Lam Chen Sing. Thank you, member. Thank you, Chairman. Earlier on, we visited the Microelectronics Center in Yuen Long. I also find it necessary to approve the funding to support this item. I support this agenda item. The document mentioned the funding amount, which exceeds $2.8 billion. Some funding is used to set up 2 pilot lines. I find it necessary. In the past, some startups said that while they have already designed the microelectronics products, they lacked pilot lines to test the relevant products. They had to go to the mainland in order to look for the relevant testing that affected the pace at which they can commercialize the products. In relation to the 2 pilot lines, are they sufficient to cater for the demand in the future? There were a couple of, 200 or so companies. In the coming 5 or 10 years, Is the supply sufficient to cater for the demand? In the paper, $360 million was devoted to set up an institution, that is the MRDI. There will be a total of 170 R&D staff members. Are you confident that you can engage sufficient R&D staff members? Will they be locals from mainland or from overseas? Actually, in many public organizations, let's not talk about researchers. In order to retain IT talent, cybersecurity, system maintenance, it seems to be quite difficult. The remuneration system, that is the salary system, needs to draw reference from that of the civil service. In the past, many public organizations found it difficult to retain these IT or INT talents. So I'd like to know the salary system. Will you be flexible enough so that you can engage enough researchers and retain these talents? 2 questions. Professor Sun Dong. Thank you for your questions. The first question, can we meet the demand? These 2 pilot lines are advanced pilot lines in the area. If successful, they will be the first successful example in China. They make use of advanced technologies and they play a key role in the course of mass production. In the coming 5 to 10 years, in Hong Kong or in its neighboring countries or places, we can meet the demand. But of course, the global situation is in a state of flux. If we need to add more pilot lines, we will consider it. In relation to your second question, we are confident that under the leadership of the management, we can recruit global talents to come to Hong Kong. There are many Chinese scientists who engage in microelectronics. They lack the opportunity to go to mainland China. In Hong Kong, we have a lot of good facilities, so we are confident that we can recruit a lot of good talents from overseas or local talents to join the institute. We hope that the recruitment exercise will start very soon. Mr. Andrew Lam. Thank you, Chairman. About budget. In paragraph 18 of the papers, it touches upon $360 million will be set aside for the operation of the institute. For staff on costs, it's about $121 million. For the expenses for R&D divisions in the MEC, about $130 million. So what do you mean by R&D divisions? What is included? My second question is that in relation to salaries for staff at head office, $121.4 million, averaging some $200 million per year. In 2028 to 2029, the costs will total $58 million. But you have both researchers and administrative staff members. Even if I use the figure in 2028 to 29, each staff member only receives $20,000. That is about $10,000 per staff member. Did I read the figures incorrectly? If not, well, that is quite staggering. I mean, that is quite surprising. Mr. Ivan Lee, as for the salaries for staff at head office, it refers to the 30 headquarters staff members under the institute. That includes the chief executive or director, senior management, researchers, and the support staff members in the headquarters. For the remaining 170 researchers, according to existing arrangements, they will have to apply for some new items under the I&T fund, and the expenditure will be met by the I&T fund. In relation to R&D divisions in the MEC, I can put it this way. It is actually the core of the MRDI. It is divided into 4 teams to work on different R&D projects. When the MRDI has started operation, we still need to purchase some facilities or equipment that includes installation. So the figure of $130 million is about setting up advanced facilities, clean rooms, and so on. Well, Chairman, can I request that the administration give me a breakdown? And if the administration has figures, that is the 170 researchers whose salaries will be paid by the I&T fund, what about the gross expenditure for staff members? Well, I think you have an estimate. So on 2 fronts, one, any detailed breakdown, well, I can give you further information after the meeting. About the second question, that is the staff member salaries in the MRDI. Well, in relation to R&D division, with reference to the MEC, of course, the figures vary. But in relation to the R&D divisions, ranging from $60 million to $200 million or so. The MRDI is medium scale to large scale, so the figures would probably stand at $200 million or so. But we need to wait until the staff members are on the position after discussions with the industry. Then there will be a clear figure. Next, Professor Priscilla Leung. Thank you, Chairman. Recently, I took part in a meeting about environmental protection. Participants of the meeting are in the domain of I&T. If the Secretary solicits our support for the I&T fund or the funding provision for the MRDI, I'm all for it. I believe your judgment in relation to science. However, I'd like to ask about some more details. Sometimes we are said to be catching up with the main trend instead of innovating. In paragraphs 4 and 6, you refer to 2 figures. That is from N to 1, that is from 0 to 1. We need to realize our innovation potential. However, in relation to collaboration with the industry, academia, and research sectors, you mentioned 1 to N transformation. So how do you quantify these 2 targets? What do they mean? I understand it's important to retain talents, troll for talents, and have the commercialization of products. But how do you measure the KPI? With Dajiang experience, it's always a lesson for us to learn from. How can we retain talents in China, in Hong Kong, but then the products will be commercialized in Shenzhen? They can provide funding, places, and good remuneration. So, of course, the young in Hong Kong will go to Shenzhen. My second question is that this is an investment. It's not necessary to pursue results in investment. Otherwise, we won't dare to approve any projects. However, if there are some successful unicorns, then I consider it a success. If we need to make sure there will be success before we greenlight the projects, then no one will ever try to innovate. But how can we ensure that the mechanism is such that our investment will bring benefits, bring results? What about the CEO of the institute? Does the CEO work in the business sector or does he work in the INT sector? So 3 questions. Thank you.
I thank Professor Leung for her questions. Now, the Hong Kong leadership has strong ability in making breakthroughs. We didn't have midstream transformation and downstream development. Now, in the past couple of years, this administration proposes that Hong Kong complete a INT ecosystem. Now, from R&D to transformation to downstream development, this is building up the system. Previously, we didn't have an industry because we were policy-led. Now, the people transformed their results in Shenzhen, and now we are embarked on this bright new approach. Now, not any country in the world enjoys the strengths of Hong Kong. We have strong leadership. We have a great potential for development. I believe our INT policy will have a bright future. This can be said to be a long-term investment. We built the MRDI. The purpose is to take a macro approach. It provides a multi-function platform to support universities, R&D sector, and the industry sector to attract personnel from all over, talent from all over the world. The purpose is that we will start a semiconductor industry system. Now, IMEC has been very successful. It cooperates with many participants around the world. Now, our microelectronics initiative will be the IMEC of the Orient. We have a good system. The talents will come. Now, our talents in Hong Kong can draw from the multitudes of semiconductor talents around the world. We will have a good talent bank. Mr. Wong Kam-Fai. Thank you, Chairman. I support very much the setting up of the NRDI by the government and 2 pilot lines. I think that the semiconductor development in Hong Kong must be competitive. We must exploit our R&D capabilities. The MRDR and the pilot lines should be speedily taken forward so that the universities can transform their R&D outcomes. Now, I'd like to ask again. Now, the MRDI and the S3, ASTRI, how do they divide up the work? And second question, the pilot lines, will there be cooperation with the manufacturers and research institutes in the mainland? Will they be able to apply by themselves or will they attach themselves to Hong Kong universities in applications? The S3 and the MRDI, the roles in the future are different. The S3 now it has R&D development system, but that doesn't include third generation semiconductors. Now, the new MRDI will be charged with this specialized task. There will be an expert team, and the S3 and the MRDI will discuss among themselves so that they develop in a complementary way. Now, the MRDI of Hong Kong is based on the IMAC model. So this is rather different from the S3. And the second question, cooperation with mainland manufacturers. Professor Chen. The third generation semiconductor manufacturers have already been discussing with us concerning the silicon carbide and gallium nitride. We are discussing cooperation with them, and many university R&D teams have come to Hong Kong. They would like to know when they can make use of the pilot lines of the MRDI because they have reached that stage. They have reached 1 and they like to go to N. Now, when the pilot lines are ready, they can enter the arena. Mr. Wong? Yes, we do hope there will be more collaboration between the mainland and Hong Kong. Now, will we have more participants from the mainland so that we can expedite the collaboration between mainland and Hong Kong? Yes, the MRDI will certainly be open to abroad and to the mainland. We certainly hope to enhance the cooperation with the mainland. Reverend Kun? Now, in paragraph 18, there are ABC. On C, contingency funds. It's about $300 million. What are those? Mr. Lee? Now, for for projects generally, we allow 15% for contingency. For instance, when there is public tendering for purchase of equipment, now sometimes there are price fluctuations in the market. Usually we allow for a small margin to cater for the expenditure. This is the general arrangement. If it's not necessary, we won't spend the amount. Reverend Kun? Yes, it's a contingency. Oh, okay. I thought that it's for some emergency use. Next, Mr. Chen Shih-hung. Now, first, I support setting up of the MRDI. Hong Kong has lacked pilot lines so that semiconductor R&D cannot be transformed quickly now, so it's very timely. Now, Mr. Lam said that he hopes the administration can provide some data about the 130 million of R&D divisions. And then about paragraph 20. Now, it mentions that there are 5 other R&D centers by the government. Now, they apply for funding from the government, and then the MRDI will earn income from collaboration with the platform so that it will try to be self-financing as much as it can. Now, we don't have pilot lines right now. Now, Hong Kong enterprises have to rely on the mainland or institutions abroad to do the pilot line work. Now, the key is that once the MRDI is established and we have these 2 pilot lines, how do we charge our fees? Now, we have been charging relatively high fees. Now, if we charge high fees, then the industry may suffer a heavy burden. So, can you tell us your considerations about your charging scheme? And now the MRDI, there are $3.64 million for 5-year expenditure. Now, on page 7, that is in paragraph 18, it mentions that for the sub-items, I do not see the pilot lines at the Yunlong Inno Park. Will the Inno Park collect a fee from the MRDI, and how much is that? And will that be under a certain item in the first year expenditure of the MRDI? You might tell me that you will get the money from the ITF, but the information is not stated. Now, apart from operation of the pilot lines, the MRDI will also help the industry with R&D work to meet the economic needs of Hong Kong and the Greater Bay Area. Now, on this part, how do you achieve the mutual complementary cooperation between Hong Kong and the mainland? 3 questions. Now, the detailed breakdown will be supplied. Now, R&D divisions, $1.3 million, $130 million. We will supply the information after the meeting. Now, the high standard clean rooms are required for the MRDI. So in our premises, we need to install pipes, lines, and waste treatment ducts for discharge in and out of the clean rooms and air management systems. Now, and then on the charging scheme. Now, R&D institutions, they engage in different items. Now, if the industry wants to get early help, it can pay for the 100% of the cost, and then it will have the intellectual property right. And then there will be cooperation and cooperation platform items. Now, if the industry pays 50% of the cost, it will also enjoy 50% of the IP rights. And there are some items where the industry have to pay 10%. Now, this is further out ahead. So, depending on their needs, the industry can cooperate with it. Is it similar to the S3 model? Yes. Now, the MRDI has to pay rent to the science park. Now, our budgeted rent now will be calculated when the R&D items are launched. So, $360 million dollars. That's not included. That doesn't include that. Now, in future they will have a roadmap, and every year they will apply to the ITF for R&D items. Now, the cost will be included therein. The secretary now cooperation with the Greater Bay Area. Now, our positioning is that we will be the top institution in Asia. Now, the MRDI is open. The Greater Bay Area will have priority in making use of it. So this will be a very good cooperation. I also support this item. This MRDI is important for Hong Kong's long-term development. Now, paragraph 10 says that the MRDI will, based on meritocracy and open recruitment system. Now, out of 200, 30 will be funded out of the $120 million. That's about $2 million per month. Now, the CEO, how much approximately would be his pay? Because it's difficult to engage someone like that. Now, the CEO, we source him from within Hong Kong or globally.
Among the 170 researchers, they will be work on the projects under the INT fund. Is it possible that their application is not successful? So it won't be necessary to have all 170 researchers. The administration. Thank you, Chairman. Regarding the Chief Executive Officer, CEO, we adopt a principle of meritocracy and we will hold open recruitment. In relation to salary, we'll draw reference from similar public organizations. We'll set up a board of directors. Certain procedures will be gone through. We'll compare similar positions in the public organizations to decide on the salary of the CEO of the institute. Regarding the number of researchers, well, it's possible that if there are not many items under the INT fund, there will be fewer researchers required. We want to have projects that can help the community, so we will also be a gatekeeper. We hope that after our reminders, if necessary, their application under the INT fund will be successful. Next, Dr. Lo Ai Kwok. Thank you, Chairman. I support the establishment and operation of the MRDI. I support the funding application. The electronics industry in Hong Kong in the 70s had rapid development in Hong Kong. In the 4 dragons in Asia, we ranked the top. However, unfortunately, the government back then had not been proactively supporting the development of electronics. Other governments considered this an important direction. So let's not talk about 4 dragons. Hong Kong is fortunate enough to have entrepreneurs and professionals who make enhancements, who make improvements. So the electronic development in Hong Kong is still doing well. We have advanced products, but the administration is not attaching a lot of importance to it. In 1999, we had an opportunity to make a breakthrough. A company would like to come to Hong Kong to set up a factory for wafers. Mr. Zhang was the CEO of the relevant institute. We took money out of our own pocket to go to Taiwan to meet Mr. Zhang. Mr. Zhang introduced the relevant procedures and flow to us, but then the government back then was still unwilling to provide any tax concessions or other support to us. Shanghai seized upon the opportunity. So in Shanghai was the leader in terms of integrated circuit. We dare not forget the history. We must seize the opportunity we have right now. So regarding the $2.8 billion of funding application, I'm all for it. When it comes to the development of microelectronics industry is actually very wide. We have chosen the 3rd generation semiconductors. That is, we have silicon carbide and gallium nitride. What is the reason behind choosing these two? Why do we think Hong Kong still has a competitive edge? What benefits will they bring to the local industry? While we have to spend money, we need to make it clear in what areas we still have the upper hand. Why do we have the competitive edge in these two areas? Secretary, I invite Professor Philip Chan to give you more information. Third generation semiconductors are an important part in renewable energy. As you know, China is the largest production country of renewable energy. Usually in integrated circuits, it's the thinner the better, so the investment is substantial. However, in relation to third generation semiconductors, it's all about the efficiency of energy. As long as the energy conservation efficiency is high, it will be good. In the GBA, there are many companies on power supply. These are the two reasons why we chose these two areas. Well, Chairman, I spent a long time working on electronics and the relevant industry, that is power supply, as a professor mentioned. I mainly worked in the telecommunications industry. I do understand the reasons behind it, but we need to make sure we are on the track to success. Otherwise, we'll miss up on this opportunity. So I hope we can form a good team so that we can commercialize this product. Then it will be beneficial to the development of Hong Kong. Next, Ms. Connie Lam. Thank you, Chairman. The products need to be tested and certified by pilot lines before they can be produced in a mass production manner. But these R&D products could not commercialize microelectronics design swiftly. But according to the papers, silicon carbide and gallium nitride cost a total of $1.9 billion. So how will you assess the economic benefits of pilot lines? When can we recover the cost? How long can the pilot lines be used? When technology develops by leaps and bounds, will the pilot lines be replaced soon? Secretary, thank you. In relation to pilot lines, they are key to semiconductor industry. They test the upstream work. They also forge conditions in the midstream for mass production. Member mentioned economic benefits. The MRDI will set up 2 pilot lines. I have already told you the reasons behind it. We need to become not just Hong Kong, but the GBA's important development engine. We need to play an important role in relation to the development of third-generation semiconductors. We need to use this platform and work with local universities in order to forge connection and collaboration. We will also help the industry with the research and development. Many SMEs lack these facilities, so they could not test and certify or validate their products. With pilot lines, this problem can be resolved. Then the R&D products can go through mass production worldwide. What about cost recovery? Is there any time? Well, we oftentimes mention IMEC. After 4 decades or so, the Belgian government spends some 100 million euros every year, accounting for 15% of the investment amount. the economic benefits are not about whether they can be self-financing, but is actually about their IP income, products, and companies generated. Actually, the aim of being self-financing is not great enough. If an organization runs well, investment should be continued. That is, money should be plowed back for developing the relevant industry or company. Mr. Chao Siu Chung. Thank you, Chairman. I support this agenda item. In paragraph 18 of the papers, some $360 million will be used to establish the MEC and operate the MEC for the first 5 years. We have 5 R&D centers. They were set up in 2006. According to the papers, the administration back then said that if these 5 centers had to continue the operation after the 5-year period, they should be self-financing. So they need to have the ability to seek sufficient capital from the industry or operate on a self-financing basis in order to continue with its operation. So I'd like to ask the administration, is the administration confident, or what tactics, policies do you have to increase the income of the MRDI so the institute can ensure a sustainable operation without relying on the provisions under the INT fund? Professor Sun, Secretary. Thank you, Chairman. The establishment of the MRTI is in response to the main trend of new quality productive forces, which is in line with the strategic strategy or direction of the country. If successful, third-generation semiconductors will become a globally leading industry around the world. The establishment of the MRDI has a very important direction and positioning. So, as for the positioning of the MRDI, after collecting feedback from the industry, we are confident. Regarding the 5 R&D centers, the INT department is conducting studies, and we will make adjustments. We will make announcements in due course. For the 5 R&D centers, they made important economic contributions to Hong Kong. They contributed 40% to 50% of the income to the industry. The key is the role it plays. On economic benefits, we'll continue to review our work. Mr. Xiang Hailong. Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I support the establishment of the MRDI, not least the 2 pilot lines. Upstream, midstream, and downstream, I support the development. In the midstream, it can commercialize the products in the upstream. It can also help the startups, SME, as well as the semiconductor enterprises in the downstream. I have a couple of suggestions. First of all, we invest $2.8 billion into the MRDI. Actually, not just $2.8 billion. Some will be under the INT fund. We need to have a KPI. What is your indicator? Do you have any? The Secretary mentioned IMAG in Belgium, which is also a semiconductor R&D institute. Patent has become an important sector. It is very influential. So the new establishment of the MRDI, do you have any KPI for patents? If yes, what is the figure? Do you have any quantifiable target? Next, many members are concerned about whether the innovation link in the GBA can be used. The investment of the MRDI is substantial. If we can avoid the duplication of investment of 9 cities in the Guangdong province, is it possible for us to reach a consensus with these cities? We have the MRDI and you have laboratories in Guangdong and so on, so that we can collaborate together with a view to sharing resources. Is it possible? Thank you.
就算嗰個建議你都
You can comment on the proposal. Now we will have a strict assessment system for the MRDI. Now the I&T fund research items. Now the income from IP rights and the fees collected from the industry, and we will also assess the number of R&D staff involved. Now the I&T Commission will report annually based on the actual current system to the LegCo and table the annual financial reports. Now the in the Guangdong area now. For the third generation microelectronics industry, given our international position, our strengths in talents, we will certainly do well. Now, of course, we welcome similar institutions being built in other places. It doesn't mean that when we build MRDI, there cannot be similar institutions built in other places. Now, we must clearly set a KPI for the IPs in the for the semiconductor developments. Mr. Tony Chen. Now, I support the MRDI and the development of the semiconductor industry. Now, firstly, the document says that the I&T fund will set up the $2.8384 billion. Does that mean will we inject a new sum of 2.8384 billion, or is it that the INTF fund already has the money within it? The paragraph 8 mentions that the MRDI will be wholly owned by the government. Now, why do we adopt this approach? Because the document mentions in paragraph 10 that the science park has under it the ASTRI. Now they also engage in third generation semiconductor R&D. So why do we need to set up a new institutions? And why don't we just use the ASTRI's work in this regard? Now the document says that in May 2022, the Finance Committee agrees to allocate $2.5 billion for the science park to rebuild the Yunlong property as a microelectronics center. Now, now the projected completion date was 2021. Now, how is the usage nowadays? Is it that no one is using it, so that the MRDI will become the operation center instead? Mr. Lee, the commissioner. Now, first question, he is right. Now, we come to the Finance Committee for an additional commitment. Now, under the INT fund, there are different funding schemes. Now, once we get the FC's approval today, in the future, we will examine the balance of the fund, the cash flow, and our cash commitments. Now, the fund injection will be reflected in our annual reports, and we necessarily will come to the Finance Committee for funding. Now, S3 engages in research in integrated circuits, but they don't engage in third-generation semiconductor research involving gallium nitride or silicon carbide. Now, because the semiconductor industry has great scope for development, we must have a dedicated research institute for that. The INT Commission will ensure that the two institutions complement each other and will not duplicate each other's work. Now, it's true that the original plan was to remodel an existing plant, and it was to be completed in 2021. But it was found that the microelectronics requirements are higher, for instance, the anti-seismic requirement. So ultimately, it's decided to rebuild the building after demolishing the old one. So at the end of last year, the building was basically completed, and now installations are being put in. And only in the second half this year will it formally be operate. Previous funding was to build a building with clean rooms, etc. Now the current funding is mainly to buy the equipment, to buy the two pilot lines, $2.4 billion and also the operating funds for the next few years. Now the $2.4 billion was used up, and there was no report back to the Finance Committee. Now, you have such a major change, but you haven't reported to us, Mr. Lee. Now, after the FC approved the scheme, now we briefed the relevant panels. In the past few years, we updated the latest development of the Microelectronics Center. And according to arrangement with the Science Park, if they apply for funding and if inadequate, and then the Science Park will have to shoulder the expense itself and will not ask the government for additional funding. Mr. Chairman Kwong, this is a very good item because it will allow Hong Kong to develop as an international R&D center. It will be a flagship enterprise endeavor. Now, we have to cooperate with the Greater Bay Area. Now, when the money is approved and the MRDI is set up, will there be cooperation with the industry in the mainland? Because it said that Hong Kong's public money cannot be spent overseas. Now, $2.8 billion is not a huge sum, but it's not a small sum. Now, if the MRDI develops well and it produces very good products and the industry would like to invest, can there be a public-private partnership? Also, the MRDI engages in microelectronics, and quite a few universities are engaging in that. Now, there are 280 items in the I&T fund. A lot of these projects are still going on. Will in the future the resources all be paid to the MRDI instead? Now the money will not go north. Because most of the 2.8 billion will be used for buying equipment, and the rest will be the operating expenditure for the next 5 years of the MRDI. Now, there's no plan for public-private partnership. IMEC was invested in by the country itself. We will support the industry. A lot of members of the industry can work with the pilot lines and produce profitable outcomes. Now, mainly we want to form a good ecosystem between the universities and the industry and the government so that they can get more funding elsewhere. So we will not compete away resources from others. If there are no further questions, Eunice Young. Michael Tian. Chairman, I'm very glad that this administration has made breakthroughs in policies, especially in I&T development, and is not merely engaged in upstream R&D. So Hong Kong attaches importance to economic outcomes. So the basic research, they may not produce a lot of employment. Now, the MRDI is a midstream institution. Now, 2.8 billion includes the 2 production lines. Now, there are things that I don't understand about the equipment involved, but the lithography machine is not simple. Now each pilot line has one. Now we buy so much a lot of components. Now, if we are subjected to oppressive measures from abroad, they don't allow Hong Kong to buy this and that. Are you sure you can buy all the components you want? Now, the 2 pilot lines doesn't require the optical lithography machines. Now, so we want to make purchases as soon as possible. Now, the semiconductor equipment. Now, we do not rely. We're not subject to controls from abroad. Now, China produces 38% of the relevant equipment. But still, we need to act quickly. Now,
I'd like to follow up. Do we need to import lithography machines? Well, Professor Chan, please speak into the microphone. We only need inline. I discussed with them in March. They have not been banned, but we need to act fast. We can't predict the future. We don't know what the future holds. In the mainland China, these are not manufactured. Is that correct? That's correct. There's no lithography machine in the mainland manufactured. Yes, and that is correct. Well, you're saying that it's quite easy to buy imported items, but we need to move fast. We don't know what the future holds. We are not sure whether we will be unable to buy these in the future. So, what is your planning? Are you going to test the waters by buying the machine first? Or what will you do? Well, if we can buy it now, we'll definitely buy it now. Well, I mean, when you have entered in the contract, that's what I want to know. Professor Sun, anything to add? Well, I have nothing to add. We have been expediting the research and development of lithography machine. We are confident about the production capacity of mainland China, but we need to act fast. Next, Ms. Eunice Yong. Thank you, Chairman. I support this agenda item. I support the establishment of the MRDI. It can promote the innovation and technology in Hong Kong. It can also promote industrial application of microelectronics. There were two main elements, as I understand. One, GAN, G-A-N. That is gallium nitride and silicon carbide. In relation to equipment, silicon carbide, $987 million. For gallium nitride, the figure is $980 million. For gallium nitride in Hong Kong, much is work on DC vehicle motor as well as other systems. I'd like to know the focus of research and development in Hong Kong. I'll ask Professor Chen to give you more information. These two are about the renewable energy application. For SiC silicon carbide, it's mainly applied in settings where the voltage is high, whereas for gallium nitride, it's mainly applied in settings with low voltage setting, that is below 150. AI is gaining contraction, there are servers, and gallium nitride can enhance the efficiency of the servers. In the GBA, including Hong Kong, many enterprises have plants in the GBA. They need these pieces of equipment, so the future is looking good. Chairman, I'd like to follow up. For solar energy, vehicle use, crane, and so on, if we need to research into and develop SiC, how are we different from the mainland China? What special characteristics do we have that sets us apart from mainland China? Well, we work with the research institutes in mainland China. As the secretary said, if we move fast, if we act fast, the 8-inch SiC pilot line will be the first one in our country. Professor Sun, let me explain. Let me add a little bit. Silicon carbide and gallium nitride are important pilot lines in third-generation semiconductor. In Europe and in the US, they mainly work on silicon carbide, whereas mainland China mainly works on gallium nitride. They do have their own pros and cons, but these two will overlap one another in the future. That is, they have wide application. But the common knowledge is that gallium nitride has the distinctive advantage. We will operate two pilot lines, one for silicon carbide and gallium nitride. We will leverage the advantage of our of our country, and we will also be competing with other counterparts in terms of gallium nitride. Members who would like to ask questions, please press the button as soon as possible. We need to manage time well. Mr. Tungnitze would like to ask in the second round. So if no other members would like to ask questions, I will put this item to a vote. Next, Dr. Wendy Hong. Thank you, Chairman. I support this agenda item. I have two questions. In relation to the nature of the MRDI, is it actually the same as the 5 main research and development centers set up by the administration in 2006 and the same as S3? What about the funding and assessment mechanism? Are they all the same? In relation to the assessment of the outcomes, quite many members asked about the assessment on the rewards or the cost recovery, but I have different views. Regarding the 5 public R&D institutions, every year they obtain quite a lot of funding from the administration. It's a matter of ways to have their products listed on the register. Many people would like to have the commercialization of the outcomes. These organizations are public organizations, so it's impossible to set up a company to commercialize the outcomes. The fact that it cannot make profits limits its potential or capacity. So the MRDI needs to be repositioned. We need to turn it into public use. We need to provide affordable costs or even free of charge to provide public facilities or technologies for the microelectronics industry. We need to support the development of the industry. It does not aim at making money. Instead, it needs to help the industry to make money. Of course, we don't rule out the possibility of commercialization. It can conduct R&D projects to make profits, but the core should be providing services for different companies in Hong Kong. Secretary. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Dr. Wendy Hong, for your reviews. I fully agree with Dr. Wendy Hong. We shouldn't be focusing on making money. Instead, we need to help enterprises to make money. That's why IMAC is one of the best R&D institutions around the world. At the right time, we will make announcements in due course. We will explain about the development of the 5 R&D centers. We shouldn't be comparing the MRDI with the 5 R&D centers set up in 2006. We should compare the MRDI with IMAC in Belgium. I hope my simple answer is sufficient. Mr. Rincon. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to ask a couple of questions. First of all, $300 million will be set aside for the operation of the MRDI for a total of 5 years. Starting from when? Do you mean the setup of the headquarters offices? Or in 2025 when the pilot lines are up and running? In relation to the structure or the hierarchy of the MRDI, I can see a diagram. In the paper, it said that an independent board of directors will be set up, which is very important. Do you have further details? Who are you going to appoint? Do you have any plan? In the structure, there's a dotted line between the internal audit section and the CEO. So what is their relation? I'm no expert in this area. I learned from the reports that in Shenzhen, when it comes to the development and research of microelectronics, it's very advanced in Shenzhen. So in one of the technical institutes in Shenzhen, they have a microelectronics college in Shenzhen. I'd like to ask for the MRDI in Hong Kong to be set up. Will there be any collaboration with the institution in Shenzhen and with the GBA in relation to AI? Is there any application? Questions on 3 fronts. Secretary, thank you, Mr. Ren Kong. I will ask Mr. Ivan Lee to take your questions. Mr. Lee, please speak into the microphone. The operating expenditures start from this financial year. Actually, our plan is that by the end of this year, we will set up this company officially. So there will be the leadership team. When we set up the pilot lines in the next year, that will incur a large amount of the expenditure. But the expenditures start from this financial year. In relation to the independent board of directors, we have drawn reference from different public R&D institutions. There will be official representative, industry representatives, as well as representatives from local universities. There will also be those from chambers of commerce. We aim at having a mix of different professionals with different backgrounds. They will help with the operation of the board of directors. In relation to the internal audit section, like other public institutions, they have a dotted line. They are working under the supervision of the CEO. Internal audit involves internal work. So they will be reporting to a committee under the CEO or under the board of directors instead. That's why there is a dotted line. Secretary, we are open to any collaboration with Shenzhen and the GBA. We will work with institutions around the world, such as IMAC in Belgium. In this area, there are quite good institutions such as those in Japan, in Singapore, in the mainland China. That is Nanotechnology Institute in Suzhou and those in Hunan. We will step up our collaboration with these institutions. 2 more members have pressed the button to request to speak. Next, Mr. Perry Dew. Thank you, Chairman. I've heard from the administration their responses, and I have also gone through the papers. I support this agenda item. In paragraph 13 of the papers, it explains very clearly the setting up of pilot lines. I understand the importance of these pilot lines. These 2 pilot lines involve a provision of $2.4 billion. They come with a hefty price tag. So members, carefully listen to the administration and we will strictly keep the gate. We support developing Hong Kong into an international INT center. The establishment of MRDI and the setting up of pilot lines, much like scientists who need a laboratory. So, do we have a laboratory first or scientists first? Well, actually both do matter. in terms of the procurement of hardware, I share Mr. Michael Tin's concern. We need to have the equipment in order not to be limited in terms of our development. So do we have the right conditions to recruit talent to take part in this type of work? Or else, even if we have a laboratory, if no one is going to use it, it will be a waste of resources. Thank you.
講第三次啦。
So please, Secretary, please speak again on the talent issue. Now, manpower is very important. We have manpower advantage in Hong Kong. Now, in the R&D of microelectronics, the universities are outstanding. Professor Chen is an expert. Hong Kong and the mainland, we also have a lot of people abroad who are microelectronics experts. They didn't come back because we didn't have such a platform. Now, there are also many people, experts from Taiwan. Now, I believe we can attract Chinese, ethnic Chinese R&D talents from abroad. Of course, we need to train local talent. We have such a platform, then many more students will come into this discipline. Mr. Junius Ho, I'm taking the value for money approach. Now, the Secretary, now we have to acquire the equipment, how to make comparisons. We don't have the knowledge. We pay $90 million to buy silicon carbide pilot line. We don't know whether that's worth it. Now, $900 million, you say that's a good sum, so we believe you. Now, Taiwan and the mainland, they are also engaging in such endeavors. Now, how do the costs compare when we look at these endeavors abroad? Now, very often we can't compare when we try to make assessments. So we have to believe in the government. Now there's a lot of progress, so there's a lot of information out there. So you can tell us Zhejiang or Taiwan, they paid so much for the JN equipment because we have to pay attention to the value for money issue. Now, for third generation semiconductor institute to be set up, now there are many reasons for that. Now, third generation semiconductors are now in an early stage of development. China and Europe, they still didn't have a large-scale development in this regard. So we have to try to be the ahead in at least in this region, because the world has embarked on it, but they haven't done it yet. Now, do we have the ability? Now, for the moment, the equipment is not under restriction. The raw materials is not under restrictions, and we do have that talents available. Now, the nation has now plans for third generation semiconductors. We hope that Hong Kong can play role in that regard. Now, Hong Kong is the largest producer involving renewable energies, photovoltaic, inverters, etc. These all require third-generation semiconductors. We are about 2 or 3 years behind Europe and the US. Now, we have a huge market on the mainland. Now, I'm sure we can develop with good outcome. Now, I'm asking about cost comparisons. Now, we have to buy these cars. Do we buy Toyota or buy Ford or buy Volkswagen? I understand your question. Now, we are not talking about buying equipment. We're trying to make the equipment. Now, we are trying to make the semiconductors, the top semiconductors in the world. Now, if we make them, the SiC and the GaN products will be cheaper than what we have now. For building the plants and the production lines, I think there should be cost comparison data available. Now, if we have this production line, it will be the first in the nation, so you can't compare with the mainland. As for Taiwan, etc., they probably won't tell you. We are buying commonly used equipment internationally, and the prices are publicly available internationally, so we will have a tendering exercise, and we hope to embark on tendering in the third and fourth quarters of this year. The prices will be based on international data. Tony Chair. Now, the Yunlong Industrial Estate Park originally was to be remodeled, and then it was rebuilt. So, how much money is spent? Now, we keep having to inject funds into the science park. Now, after the rebuilding at the end of last year, the rebuilding was completed. Now, for the MRDI that you are proposing, when you use the property, you achieve your requirements, right? Otherwise, it's not meaningful just to shoulder the cost of that rebuilding. Also, in paragraph 9, I believe, of the paper, it mentioned, paragraph 9. It mentioned the pilot line in Inno Park in Yunlong. Well, when the two lines are built, what is the expected life expectancy? And then in paragraph 8, no, I think it's paragraph 12. It mentions limitations. Now, what are those limitations? Now, Mr. Lee, you will provide a document on the rebuilding. On the first question by Mr. Chair, I believe the R&T Commission will provide a detailed explanation to you. Now, on the relevant requirements, now for the plant requirements are quite high. To be honest, now the funding in 2021 was not enough. The science park had to pay part of the cost because we didn't want to come back to electrical again. We didn't have the experience. There are very high anti-seismic requirements. Now, because we obtained the first batch of funding, we try to make the best out of it. Now, it can last 20 years, but maintenance is required. We are referring to third generation semiconductor subject. The equipment is subject to less oppression by other countries, but things do change quickly. We cannot prevent them from taking some very outlandish actions. If there are no further questions from members, I put to you the FCR CO6 document to a vote. Those in favor, please raise their hands. Thank you. Those against, please raise their hands. I believe that those members who voted are mostly in support. I announce that this proposal is endorsed. Now, FCR 207, this is to seek the approval for the members to approve the creation of a new commitment of $10 billion under the Innovation and Technology Fund, Head 111, Innovation and Technology. We have consulted the panel's opinion. We again have with us the Secretary, Mr. Ivan Lee, and also Dr. Meng, the Commissioner for Industry, Innovation, Technology, and Mr. Lam is not here. The Commerce, Industry, and Innovation and Technology panel had a discussion, and members agreed to forward the proposal to the Finance Committee. The members asked about application requirements, the composition of the vetting committee, and the timeline for the first applications. The members believe that the acceleration scheme will bring economic benefits to Hong Kong. This will allow strategic industries to establish production in Hong Kong. The government should also provide sustained support to help them continue to work to establish in Hong Kong. Now, I believe 13 members have decided to speak. Lam So Wai, Chairman Kwong, Chen Kim Po, Cheng Yan-yu, Chen Chiu-hang, Lee Chen-kang, Leung Si-hong, Michael Tian, Leung Hei, Siu Ka-fai, Lam Chen-sing, and Tan Ka-piu. First, Ms. Lam. Thank you, Chairman. Now, Hong Kong is developing new industrialization, so we support that. Now, under the acceleration scheme, $200 million, there's an upper limit of $200 million per project to ensure that the money is well spent. Now, I support that the funding will be paid after the report and audits are completed. Now, there can be 50% interim funding if the project lasts for more than 2 years now. If the project eventually fails, will the company be responsible?
将请
Thank you, Secretary. I will ask Mr. Ivan Lee, Commissioner, to take the question. Ms. Connie Lam is right. Overall, the funding scheme uses a reimbursement mechanism. We have already collected views from the industry, as they have a substantial investment, so they would like to have convenient arrangements for capital flow or cash flow. For short-term projects like 3 years, we allowed submitting the reports and audited financial reports by phases. We hope to help the industry with their cash flow. However, if the projects cannot be successfully implemented, we will recover the cost that the administration has already paid. Next, Dr. Chow Man Kong. Thank you, Chairman. This project involves a large sum of money, but it can help with the upgrading and transformation of the industry in Hong Kong, so it's worth our support. The new Industrialization Acceleration Scheme, NIAS, was proposed in the policy address. It's been half a year. How many enterprises have you been in touch with? How many have already said that they would be interested? Do you have any figures in this regard? Next, apart from money, enterprises and leaders play an important role. Will you consider asking them to provide the number of employees or the person in charge providing this information in the application form? Will you require them to provide these information? The administration requests enterprises to make investments of not less than $200 million. Does the administration have any plan to retain these enterprises so that we can form a new industry chain, so that they will not obtain goodies from Hong Kong and then they would leave Hong Kong? Thank you. The Chief Executive proposed the NIAS in the policy address. After that, the ITIB has been in touch with industry, especially under the leadership of the Commissioner for Industry, Dr. Ge Ming. We have been in touch with different enterprises. Some of them expressed keen interest in this scheme. I believe this scheme will succeed with the support of the enterprises in the industry. A good enterprise will definitely have a good entrepreneur or leader. They are inseparable. We want to attract them to establish presence in Hong Kong. We want to bring together good entrepreneurs. Matching plays an important role in the scheme. It's a 1-to-2 matching. We emphasize setting up businesses in Hong Kong. They need to make substantive investment in Hong Kong. They need to set up offices in Hong Kong. This is an important goal. We want to establish some more new businesses and a new ecological system in Hong Kong. Please turn on the microphone for Mr. Xiang Hailong. Thank you, Chairman. I support the provision of $10 billion to promote the development of new industrialization and new quality productive forces. I am on the committee of the relevant committee. The ITIB said that, some enterprises are interested in transforming and upgrading their businesses. Right now, 1-to-2, that is the ratio. That is, per $1 of funding provision by the administration, then the enterprise needs to invest $2. The Commissioner for Innovation and Technology said that the funding may be granted in phases. Supposing the LegCo has green-lighted this project, when will you grant the provision to enterprises? As this is directly related to the downstream, that is about production and the products, and that's about the GDP. The I&T sector accounts for a certain portion of the local GDP. So for $10 billion of the provision, what is the portion of this funding out of the GDP? For the first question, I will ask Dr. Goming to take this question. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Shang. For 1 to 2, just now Mr. Ivan Lee said I understand. Well, we mainly focus on the investment in relation to production facilities such as robotics, production chain, production line, machines, and so on, as well as supporting facilities in relation to production. Take logistics as an example. There needs to be a production facility. Necessary software is also included. For example, EDA, design software, they are also included. For microelectronics, we need to have a clean room. The renovation of clean rooms is also covered. The second question of Mr. Shang is the granting of provision the earliest. These enterprises need to set up plants in Hong Kong. The plan is the 3 years within the funding provision. They need to build up plants. They need to build plants. They need to have production lines and so on. They need to finish all these within 3 years' time. So 3 years later, there can be mass production. $10 billion of commitment, that is $20 billion of investment. These enterprises need to make money. When they submit proposals, they need to tell us the productivity value and other information. Tens of billions of dollars per enterprise, that's the amount we guess at least. Well, $2 of the 1 to 2, that includes software. Does that not cover the staff on costs or staff salary? Staff salaries are not included, but the consultancy expenditure, for example, the installation of the production line, that will be included, but operational expenditure will not be covered. Next, Mr. Chen Kim-po. Thank you, Chairman. I support the new commitment of $10 billion under the I&T Fund to support advanced manufacturing, life science, new energy enterprises. Setting up smart production facilities is much needed. We have different talent admission schemes in order to enrich the I&T pool. We also have different admission schemes such as the QMAS and the TTAS. We need to have experienced frontline workers. We only require 5 technicians or technical officers in the enterprises, and I don't think these are sufficient. So how will the administration help these enterprises recruit and train experienced frontline workers? Does that include university graduates and students of the VTC Vocational Training Council? Secretary, thank you, Mr. Chen, for your question. Indeed, this is challenging, but we need to take the first step anyway. Without an industry, even if we have talents, that won't bring us far. We only allow enterprises to import 5 frontline technical officers or technicians from the mainland China to Hong Kong. But the key is that we need to take the first step. By importing a limited number of frontline workers, I hope we can drive the training of locals or local workers. Plans won't become available overnight. It takes time to build plans. We need to train talents and so on. By and large, I believe enterprises will work with the government when they realize the urgency of the task. We must have confidence in this regard. Next, Mr. Gary Zhang. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to follow up on the issue about manpower as well. This scheme targets large-scale enterprises. That is at least $200 million per project. That is hundreds of millions of dollars. In principle, to provide convenience for them to recruit staff members, that is necessary. But the number of staff members, 5, is out of proportion, I think. It doesn't sound right to me. Are we too conservative? Should we not impose any cap? We want to do this well. The benefits definitely outweigh other considerations, so I think the cap of 5 staff members is quite strange. Secretary, thank you, Mr. Gary Zhang, for your criticism. We do listen to your review. We do take on board your review. We have TechTask, that is Technology Talents Admission Scheme. University graduates meeting certain requirements can also apply for admission to Hong Kong. Top Talent Pass Scheme, TTPS, is also one of the admission schemes. When enterprises need to import some workers into Hong Kong, but they are not eligible for application under the 5 admission schemes, we want to allow these people to be imported into Hong Kong. We accept the criticism of Mr. Gary Zhang. I hope that we can take a bolder step and walk forward. Next, Mr. Sunny Tan. Thank you, Chairman. I support the administration to implement the new Industrialization Acceleration Scheme, NIAS. I have a couple of simple questions. First of all, on talents as well. Apart from the talent admission schemes, in INT or research and development institutions, is it possible for Hong Kong to groom even more local talents? We need to groom talents in some major areas. Coupled with imported talents, we will be in a better position. There needs to be a place to bring together talents. So more talents we have, the more easily we can attract international experts to come to Hong Kong. This situation is also seen in other countries. I hope the administration will give it some thought. Recently, the US would like to attract more technology companies to return to the US for production. Their matching is 1-to-1. I think the administration should consider the appeal of 2-to-1. We should compare 2-to-1 to 1-to-1. We need to make adjustments if need be. When we receive a project in the interim, a certain portion of money can be granted, but can bridge loan be taken out from the bank? Is it possible? 3 questions. Thank you.
都係人才㗎。
Secretary, now I think nurturing local talent is very important for us. This will be fundamental for our future development. But Hong Kong doesn't have the industry. You nurture the talent. Where do they work after they graduate? So we have to build the industry first, and then we will have the talent. Of course, we have to step up the work. Right now, the universities and even secondary and primary schools have stepped up the STEM education. Now, as for the matching ratio, some countries have adopted very progressive or aggressive steps. Now, right now, it's 1 to 2. For us, we think it's appropriate now. Bank loans, now in the future, as our industry rears its head, the demand will be much greater, so there will be scope for development. We are optimistic. Next, Mr. Lee Chun Kang. Now, the administration and the bureau is making a breakthrough for this new industrialization initiative. I think it's very good. Now, we have to offer the bait to attract the big fish. Now, the Hong Kong is relying on the mainland. It can be can achieve a lot. Now, for the $10 billion invested, what concrete effects do you expect? How many more jobs will be created? So the Hong Kong people will feel happier that they are receiving actual benefits. Now, also, some government funds have taken time to approve funding. Now, can you shorten the time for funding? Can there be KPIs for faster approvals? And then there's the issue of risk. Now, if the company comes to Hong Kong and it does well, will you allow it to be sold to others, given that government money has been invested? Now, the equipment, will it still belong to the government? Or at least will it be partly owned by the government? Now, the first GDP, that question has been asked. The employment issue hasn't been answered. Now, we are trying to build the I&T industry system in Hong Kong. Now, it's from 0 to 1. We need to adopt extraordinary steps. We have learned from the advanced systems in the world. The government subsidy is very important. So many governments are doing that. Now, we hope that at least 50 to 100 companies will invest their money in Hong Kong to produce in Hong Kong. Most companies will spend more than $200 million. Now, maybe $100 billion or $200 billion. Now, since they are investing so much, they would have high aspirations for future profits. So we think that in the future, when all these enterprises come into production, Hong Kong will benefit a lot. Sometimes one company can produce benefits of up to $100 billion. Now, and there will be relevant job creation. Now, approval period will certainly be expedited. That has been made clear in the document. Now, since it's the new industrialization acceleration scheme, approval process has also to be accelerated. Now, on risk, now when people engage in business, there will be change in shareholders. Now, we may raise requirements if necessary. The production must be in Hong Kong, no matter what change in shareholders. Now, we have to ensure that Hong Kong benefits from the development. Next, Mr. Chair Shih Hong. I support the NIAS. Now, I support enterprises in strategic industries to set up new production facilities in Hong Kong. Now, very often when public funds are involved, as members have said, we are overly concerned about what will happen when the endeavor or the enterprise eventually fails. Now, for new quality production forces, for R&T, we have to expect a higher rate of failure. Now, we need to have certain provisions for recouping our investment, but we should be more concerned about the multiplier effect. We can build up the production chain and the talent bank, so we have to adopt new thinking. Otherwise, we will not make any progress. Now, on paragraph 25 and 26, I'd like to clarify one point. Now, $10 billion is the commitment. At the same time, there is in paragraph 26, there is a talent subsidy scheme, 1-to-1 matching. Now, it can be up to $3.68 billion. So is it a total commitment of $13.68 billion? And then in paragraph 15 on the governance mechanism. Now, for the NIAS, apart from paragraph 15, A, B, C, D, the governance mechanism, 5 years, no transfer, will you, etc., will you a provision that if the government thinks that the assisted enterprise is worth it, the government will have the right to prerogative to invest in it, have the first right. Now, after the audits are completed, the I&T Commission will only then release the funding. Now, but for many enterprises, cash flow is very important. In many countries, when they offer these subsidies, they allow funding by stages. Now, if the proposal, different stages are involved, then the government will release the funding by stages, and of course there will be provision also for recouping the investment if the enterprise fails. Now, I believe Mr. Lee already touched on the third issue. The Secretary. Now, Mr. Lee can respond again briefly to the three questions. Now, today we are seeking the Finance Committee to approve the $10 billion commitment so that we can start the NIAS. And in paragraph 26, it refers to the Research Talent Hub. This is already a regular item for us. So when the entire I&T fund requires additional funding, we will come back to electrical for additional funding. But today we are only talking about the $10 billion. Now, and then the funding by stages. Now, as I said, for these funding schemes, we usually use the reimbursement approach. Only when we see the report will we reimburse the funds. Now, but we also try to help with the cash flow. If a project is longer than 2 years, say 2 to 3 years, then we will allow reimbursement by stages to help the cash flow. The government currently has no plan to acquire share ownership to get a right for to be given the first right to invest in shareholding. Well, when they succeed, they might sell the company to others. When these companies come to Hong Kong, they will require funding. We have HKIC, which will be concerned about the condition, and for local investors, now we are concerned about the development of local enterprises. For these subsidized enterprises, they will be targets of investment, but we currently have no plan to get the first right to invest. Now, these companies, of course, would like to apply for government funding and investment, and for government to become a shareholder. Michael Tan? To develop I&T, we need to develop upstream, downstream, and midstream. Now, the previous item is midstream. That's the previous item, and now NIAS, I believe, is downstream. Now, we spent $10 billion to attract companies and talent to set up in Hong Kong. We are now offering a matching ratio of 1-to-1. The $10 billion can attract at least 50 of these companies to come to Hong Kong. Theoretically, these terms are attractive, but looking at the recent international developments, I'm not so sure. I don't know whether we can compete. Now, in February this year, the Taiwan semiconductor firm is offered half of the costs of setting up in Japan. Now the it's $24 billion subsidy by the Japanese government out of so for half. Now there was a concert Now, the Singapore government offered 2 to 300 million US dollars for the concert to be held only in Singapore. Now, the various governments are offering more and more for the first move advantage. Now, our approach is wide and shallow. Now, can you think of narrow but deep? You attract several enterprises to engage in large-scale projects. You don't limit that to upper limit of $200 million because the really large companies would not be interested. Now, when you have these large companies, then the other smaller ones will come. Now, if you spread your money out so thin, now I don't know whether they will come. Now, they may worry about the talents being available.
下面陈议员
Thank you, Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Michael Tian, for your questions. In the next application with a larger amount of provisions, we hope to have support of Mr. Michael Tian as well. There needs to be a package of measures. For the $10 billion, it's about the establishment of production facilities. There are other talent emission schemes in a package of measures. We need to leverage on the advantage of Hong Kong to attract talents and enterprises to Hong Kong. $200 million are just a drop in the water or in the ocean. In Hong Kong, we didn't have this plan. If we have the support of the Council, if it's well received in the community, we will take our second step, but we would like to take a first step and tread in a steady manner. Next, Mr. Edward Leung. In the past decades, our GDP was surpassed by other countries. 26% of GDP in Singapore is in the industrial sector. However, the portion in Hong Kong is less than 1%. After spending this amount of money, when will we increase to our target? That is the percentage of less than 1%. When can we expect it to increase? Earlier on, we explored with the administration, apart from money, how can we attract high-quality enterprises to come to Hong Kong? In Singapore, they give enterprises land and they also give tax concessions. Is it possible to implement all these in Hong Kong? If not, it seems we don't have the competitive edge. I liaised with the CEDB and it seems that we can implement all these. Is there any mechanism by which if there is a good enterprise, then we can customize goodies and offer goodies to these high-quality enterprises? Thank you, Ms. Edward Leung, for your questions. In relation to the percentage of the industrial sector, in the Hong Kong INT Development Blueprint, we want the percentage to rise to 5% in 2032. We are moving forward steadily. In the future, if the percentage can go up to 5%, we can drive trading, logistics, and so on. This will be conducive to boosting the percentage of GDP. We have a preferential tax regime in Hong Kong. For the first $2.5 million of input, we have tax concessions of 300%, afterwards 200%. For income arising from IP, intellectual property, we also have favorable policies. Is there any aggressive policies? That is not under the purview of our bureau. I am not in a position to answer this question, but it's important to leverage the strong support of mainland China and the connections with the world. So we need to harness our existing advantages. I believe there is much room. I look forward to exploring this issue with Mr. Everett Long in the future. Next, Mr. Peter Schill. Thank you, Chairman. I support the NIAS. Our country promotes new quality productive forces. We were kind of slow in our pace on the development of INT, so I support the provision. $200 million per enterprise. If we can attract 50 companies, then the outcome will be quite good. I hope the administration will work hard. In paragraph 8b, to encourage enterprises from industries of strategic importance to carry out or increase their scale of R&D in Hong Kong by providing additional funding incentives for them to engage research talents. What are these additional funding incentives? In D, in another paragraph, if other companies succeed, if the production facilities funded cannot be transferred to third parties or to any places outside Hong Kong within a specified period of, say, 5 years after project completion, then we will need to recover the costs. If we fund these enterprises with an amount of hundreds of billion dollars, apart from recovering the cost, what can we do? If these companies really succeed and if they leave Hong Kong, when they only give us back the money, what can we do in order to benefit from these companies? Secretary, Professor Sun Dong. Thank you, Mr. Peter Schill, for your support. Regarding additional funding incentives, we have talent admission schemes for those meeting the requirements. They can receive funding for 4 staff members, that is researchers, for a maximum of 3 years. Out of the $10 billion, there is no provision for manpower. Each company used to be able to support 4 staff members only. Right now, the figure increases to 40. The additional 36 staff members also enjoy one-to-one matching. In relation to how we can retain these enterprises, we do want them to have good development. If they have progressive development, this will show them that Hong Kong is a good place. Say for extraordinary conditions, they won't leave. Even if they are going to leave, they will also leave many operations in Hong Kong. We are confident. But of course, in a decade's time, if they want to leave Hong Kong, just let them leave. It's difficult to tie them to Hong Kong with an amount of $200 million for good. But we do want these enterprises to establish presence in Hong Kong and develop in Hong Kong. We'll work hard to keep these enterprises in Hong Kong. When talents reside in Hong Kong for 7 years, they will be able to get Hong Kong identity card. Will you consider giving talents identity card after, say, 3 years? So even if they are not going to work for that company after 3 years, they will still be talents to Hong Kong. When we sponsor $200 million plus $400 million, that would total $600 million. let's not say 1/3 or 1/10, when they when they make large amount, when they make substantial profits, they can also benefit Hong Kong. We shouldn't shut our doors. Next, Mr. Lam Chen Sing. Before Mr. Lam asks questions, if any other members would like to ask questions, please come to the conference room as soon as possible. We can still vote before the scheduled meeting time ends. Next, Mr. Lam Chen Sing. Thank you, Chairman. I support this project as well. I have two questions about talents. First, there is the TechTask scheme. That is the technology talent emission scheme. Less than 500 actually. The technology talent emission scheme started in 2018. Not many talents came to Hong Kong every year. The quota is some 100. I understand back in 2018 we didn't have top talent pass scheme, we didn't have talent list. Mainly we relied on TechTask. But right now we have TTPS. Talent lists also allow talents to be admitted to Hong Kong. So is TechTask still necessary? Not many talents are admitted through TechTask, less than 500 actually. Can talents be admitted to Hong Kong through different schemes? So you can avoid duplication of different talent admission schemes. You can also have a dedicated team to work on the examination of the admission application of technology talents. You also have another talent admission scheme to allow 36 research talents to be admitted to Hong Kong or to be recruited by the company. Do you have any qualifications requirements? That is, any requirements that need to be met before you will offer the funding to the companies? Is there any way to ensure that after the funding, these researchers will work on research? They won't work on, for example, administrative duties, in which case they won't require the funding. So I'd like to know whether there's any standard or monitoring of the funding in order to make sure that the provisions are put to good use. These questions are about policies. First of all, in relation to TechTask, they mainly focus on some enterprises. When these talents come to Hong Kong through TechTask, they immediately have a job. These are targeted admission schemes. This is a targeted admission scheme. Throughout the years, there is a limited number of talents. We cannot shelve this scheme just because of a small number of talents. Many companies don't have this demand, but I believe that in the future, with the robust development of the INT industry, there will be greater demands in this connection. TTPS cannot satisfy the demand of all enterprises. TechTask requires, technology talents need customized talent admission schemes. But of course, some can also be admitted to Hong Kong through TTPS. We need to have different admission schemes. TechTask and TTPS have different requirements. They don't have salary requirements. They do not have any requirement in relation to world ranking either. For the Research Talent Hub, this admission scheme has been effective in Hong Kong. It has been implemented for a couple of years. There is no requirement in relation to education. They need to submit reports and so on. The higher-ups and the supervisors need to give comments. We think there is no abuse of resources when it comes to the Research Talent Hub. Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Bill Tang. Thank you, Chairman. We talk about new quality productive forces nowadays. I believe this scheme that is NIAS is relevant to attract talents from outside Hong Kong to come to Hong Kong. When these entrepreneurs or scientists come to Hong Kong, will local institutions have the capability for training talents? How can we achieve this? You have been very specific. In 2024 to 25, you will attract 50 to 100 enterprises to come to Hong Kong. I believe you are discussing with some enterprises. Otherwise, you wouldn't give so specific details. Some may be targeting the loop area, or some will identify their own room in the market. How will you help them? Is that your responsibility or no? Just as they wish? My last question is that for the officials attending a meeting today, you may be transferred to another department, you may retire. But how can we continue to connect these world-class entrepreneurs or scientists? I think we should keep good connection, not just because they have taken our money, but when they come to Hong Kong, even if they have come across any setbacks in their business, do we have any plan or mechanism? Or we can even establish a quasi-government organization to connect these entrepreneurs who have relations with the government. Their business plans may not be very successful, but we can maintain liaison with them to keep a good connection. Some may have left Hong Kong. Is there any plan? Thank you.
谢谢邓家彪。
I thank Mr. Tang Ka-piu for his support. Now, the enterprises that we support are not only those from abroad. Local enterprises can also apply. They must be within healthcare technology, now AI and data science and advanced manufacturing and new energy industries. They can all apply. Now, local companies can apply, local talents can join. Now, these enterprises must produce in Hong Kong, so our young people will benefit, our workers will benefit. Now, this is why we engage in new industrialization. It not only contributes to GDP, but to local employment. Now, we try to nurture our young. Now, we allow only 5 per application. So, because we want to consider local talent. Now, what kind of enterprises can come? They must be within the 3 groups of industries. They must be willing to invest several $100 million in Hong Kong. Now, we have a vetting committee to assess whether they qualify. And will these scientists and talent can stay in Hong Kong? Now, as long as the enterprises are established in Hong Kong, then the talent will not easily go away. Now, they can see the policy in Hong Kong. They can see Hong Kong's edge. Now, as long as we maintain this edge, more enterprises will establish in Hong Kong. I'm confident. I thank Mr. Tang for his support. I attach importance to relationship. Now, when the entrepreneurs and the scientists leave Hong Kong, can we try to maintain the relationship? We have a unit doing this work as you suggested. Ms. Kong? Now, on the scope of industries, I'd like to ask, in the document, it mentioned several items, strategic industries. I'd like to ask, apart from those mentioned in paragraph A, now, are there others? Now, if there are new ones, what kind of vetting procedure will they have to go through? And in the document, there's little mention of the governance structure. Now, in the document, it mentioned vetting criteria, and the previous vetting committee will be used again. Now, on managing the scheme, do we have a governance structure to ensure that future operation uh, can get the confidence of the public? Now, for the applying companies, in the document it says eligibility requirements. Now, I looked at similar schemes in other places. Now, they may have other requirements, such as do we require shareholding by U.S. Companies, a certain percentage ownership, or how many local persons have to be employed, or how much turnover, or what kind of return previously achieved, and the minimum time period the company has to stay in Hong Kong. Will you consider these requirements? And also on the IPs. Now, for these companies, they may have certain inventions. Now, will the IPs be owned by the government? Will they revert to the government? On the governance structure, now mainly we rely on the INT Commission working with the New Industrialization Development Office. We try to make use of the current governance structure rather than set up a new one. There will be established procedures on how to contact enterprises and how to assess by certain standards. Now, we say that this has to be a technology enterprise. It is within the three industry groups, but the vetting committee will consider how close the enterprise is linked to Hong Kong, how much is it connected to Hong Kong. There may be 200 or 300 applications. We do not have to approve every one of them. So the two commissioners will deal with that. Now, on the IPs, now if the IPs belong to the companies, then the government will not try to grab it. But I hope that more local enterprises can create more new IPs, create new technologies. Now, even if some production moves abroad, so long as we hold on to the production technology, then we will be a important hub for governance internationally. There's also the first question. The scope Now we allow only three groups: healthcare technology, now AI and data science, and advanced manufacturing and new energy industries. Now these are selected carefully. We do not have unlimited resources. The three groups cover most I&T industries. If members wish to ask further questions, you have to press the button now. Otherwise, we will have a vote after the next two members speak. The next, Chong. Now, I support the funding of the NIS. I have two questions. Firstly, paragraph number 14 in the document, the vetting criteria. Firstly, to ensure that the public funds are well spent, all applications will be subjected to the economic benefit criterion. Now, how do you assess the economic benefit? Will you have some kind of indicator for the applicant to consider? And some products are in a preliminary stage. How do you justify the economic benefit? Also, I have asked questions about the operation of the I&T fund. Now, we approved a lot of funds for enterprises. Do we have a mechanism to examine the benefits achieved? Now, for instance, how much taxation is generated, how much employment generated. Now, so the public will realize the benefit and they will give greater support. We will have similar statistics at this time. I thank Mr. Ng for his questions. Now, this is actually one question. Now, what kind of enterprise will we support? Now, there are certain industries that we focus on. We want to see whether the industry has a good future for development. Of course, we look at the proposal of the enterprise. We want to look at its track record. We want to see how much they actually invest. Now, I believe that this new industrialization development committee, they will comprise various experts, and they will ensure that the enterprises are the right ones. Now, many enterprises will invest hundreds of millions of dollars. They will be very careful in making the investments. We have to look at the projections for the next few years. I believe the expert panel will carefully consider that. Now, I believe Mr. Ng will want to know whether you have a record of the results. They have to submit reports. Our civil servants colleagues will be very careful in the monitoring. Next, Wong Kam Fai. Now, $10 billion is not a small sum. I support the item. I'd like to ask about the benefits. Now, previously, it was already asked. Now, GDP, how much GDP is can be advanced. Now, right now, it's less than 1%. Now, this is about KPIs. The second question already asked about employment. How many more persons will be employed? Can we achieve employment at different levels, from in research, some are in development. Other KPIs now very often used in I&T, the company to the matching ratio, the ratio of company to government is now roughly about 45 to 55. Will there be any scope for change? Now, since we are also going to join other companies, do you have a ratio for companies from locally, from mainland, and from abroad? Now, on the contribution by manufacturing to GDP, as I said, we hope by 2030 we can progress from 1% now to 5%. I think this is a very difficult challenge, but we have set the target and we will try to achieve it. The target remains unchanged. Now, we can't expect that $10 billion will enable us to reach the 5% target. That is unrealistic. But the $10 billion, now it can be a first effort. Now, it demonstrates the attitude of the SKR government. We are prepared to pay the cash to subsidize companies from abroad. Now, we hope that companies will invest at least $20 billion in Hong Kong. We hope that they can such companies can produce $100 billion of GDP in Hong Kong. Now, if they don't establish the manufacturing plants, then how can they employ our local young? So we ask them to set up in Hong Kong so that they employ local young people. As for the R&D ratio, you're right. Last year, our R&D is about 1% of GDP. Now, this is a rapid increase. Now, most of the I&T GDP is from the government, whereas for Shenzhen, 94% is from the industry itself, and Guangzhou about 90%. R&T in Shenzhen is 6% of GDP. Now, as we invest more, as the government invests more, we hope that the industry will also invest more. Now, the industry must develop well before the private sector will invest. So we want to improve the development of the ecosystem in Hong Kong. Also,
What about your target? Well, we require these enterprises to set up plants in Hong Kong. They need to set up factories or plants in Hong Kong. So we have the research talent hub to support their research and development work. Well, Professor William Wong meant, do you have any ratio in your mind? Well, we just draw reference because we want these enterprises to set up their plants in Hong Kong. We want them to make investments. Well, I think we think alike. The reasons why there are KPIs is that just like in the blueprint, KPIs are for us to move towards. However, in the document, there is no KPI. So I suggest that the administration can set KPIs. We may not be able to achieve the KPIs, but at least we will have targets. We'll take on board Professor William Wong's view. we drew reference from other countries such as the US and the mainland China. It's a policy about resources. We want the enterprises to set up plans to develop industrial development. We will encourage the development, but we'll consider setting up KPIs. I now put the document FCR 2024-25-7 to a vote. For those in favor of the proposal, please raise your hands. Thank you. Those against it, please raise your hands. No. I believe those members who have voted are in favor of this proposal. I declare this item passed. The next Finance Committee meeting is scheduled for the 24th of May 2024. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, members.